Not every franchise blows up on impact, some just fade. A patch here, a system change there, and one day the announcement of a new entry lands with a thud instead of fireworks. Today, we're looking at 10 games and series that didn't necessarily become bad, but lost the magic, that hard to define feeling that makes you care. You'll hear stories of reinventions that split communities, remakes that sanded off soul, and promises that morphed into apologies. Let's get into it. Number 10, Assassin's Creed. Everyone has a different breaking point. Now, for some, it was when the conspiratorial present-day plotline got tangled beyond recognition. For others, it was the pivot to gigantic RPG sandboxes that left pure stealth feeling optional. Then Assassin's Creed Shadows arrived. Polished, sweeping, confident, Ubisoft touted strong engagement and a sizable player count, and even pushed a summer roadmap with New Game Plus, a level cap raise, and a chunky expansion, evidence the post-launch pipeline was locked in. But none of that fully answers the old fan question: what is Assassin's Creed exactly in 2025? A stealth series with RPG bits. An RPG wearing a hood and a hidden blade. When identity blurs, attachment thins. Ubisoft's updates are generous, and the DLC cadence is clear, yet for many veterans, the tonal center they loved has been diluted by a decade of map sprawl and system bloat, even as the mainstream still shows up. Magic isn't the absence of flaws, it's the presence of purpose. When that purpose goes fuzzy, even great set pieces don't hit the same. But you don't need a decade of sequels to lose the room. Number 9, Multiversus. This one hurts because the start was so promising. The beta felt right. Clean inputs, expressive aerials, a readable chaotic brawl that genuinely stood as a strong not smash. Hype brought in huge crowds. Then came the long dark, a shutdown, a rebuild, and a 2024 relaunch in a shinier engine, along with missing staples like ranked at launch and a progression economy that felt heavier than the party fighter mood suggested. The devs said the rebuild meant some features slipped the window and would return later. Ranked eventually did. The problem isn't if a feature returns, it's when and how much trust erodes while players wait. Fighting games thrive on weekly rituals and tiny rivalries. You can't pause that energy and expect it to resume on command. When a live game asks players to fall in love twice, most simply don't. Hype can carry you to launch, but it can't carry the endgame loop. Number 8, Deathloop. On paper, irresistible. One island, 8 targets, one perfect day. The opening hours are intoxicating, every district a puzzle box, every clue a breadcrumb toward a personal master plan. The promise is improvisation. The reality for many is optimization. The most efficient sequence is the sequence, and once that clicks, the space for chaos shrinks. The gun feel is excellent, the style is immaculate, the banter sings, but the illusion of endless routes gives way to a polished hallway. That's not a disaster, it's a mismatch between a phenomenal pitch and a merely good reality. The magic fades not because the game fails, but because the fantasy of what it could be lingers louder than what it is. Change the bones of a game and you change its soul. Number 7, Star Wars Galaxies. If you were there, you remember the hush of a cantina at midnight. Galaxies wasn't just an MMO, it was a social diorama. Being a merchant, a dancer, a scout mattered. The early years were rough, opaque, occasionally brutal, but the world felt lived in. Then, late 2005, the new game enhancements arrived. Overnight, freeform professions were streamlined into a leaner set. Combat snapped into a more action-y cadence, and the entire rhythm shifted from find your place in the galaxy to follow the ride. Some players welcomed modernization, many felt the magic evaporate. You can patch systems, but you can't patch a vibe once it's gone. The NGE didn't just balance numbers, it rewrote the fantasy, and for a huge chunk of the community, that was the moment they quietly logged off for good. When remakes miss, players look backward. When sequels miss, they walk away. Number 6, TMNT, Turtles in Time Reshelled. Beloved sprite art, expressive frames, a soundtrack glued into childhood, and then a polygonal remake that felt flat. Reshelled moved faster than a brawler wants to move, and swapped the SNES's magic for the arcade's template, leaving out fan-favorite extras that could have made a definitive edition. Then it vanished from storefronts due to licensing, snapping the thread of nostalgia entirely. That's the thing about retro, it doesn't demand photorealism, it demands personality. If you sand off the charm and remove the easiest way to legally play it, the lesson players learn is to keep their old cards, and their old expectations. Number 5. Overwatch 2. On stage, the pitch was irresistible. A sequel not just to PvP, but to possibility. Deep PvE hero trees, replayable missions, a cooperative spine that justified the 2 on the box. Then came the walkback. Blizzard canceled the ambitious hero mode and talent trees, citing runaway scope and focus issues, and pivoted to smaller paid story drops. Invasion launched with cinematic missions that absolutely had moments, but the soul of the promise had already been trimmed. Players don't hate course correction, they hate bait and switch. When your sequel identity is built on a pillar you later remove, the community doesn't argue bullet points. They feel a breach of tone. The firefights are still tight, characters still sing, and the lore beats occasionally hit, yet the what could have been shadow trails every new season. That's how magic leaks. Not in a single patch, but in the slow recognition that the future you were sold will never arrive. Live service promises are easy, trust is not. Number 4. Battlefield 2042. No series is better at trailers that make you want to call in sick. 2042 had the look, but launch was a turbulent simulator. Missing features, slippery performance, confused identity, DICE patched, iterated, rebuilt classes, and, to their credit, improved the core feel substantially over time. The problem, the clock. Momentum is a currency, and shooters spend it fast. When the studio later signaled Season 7 would be the last full season, the tacit message was clear. The ship is seaworthy now, but it's already headed for dry dock. Players respect effort, they invest in future. Announcing an end to major seasons formalizes what a lot of lobbies already feel. This party's winding down. The magic didn't die in a firefight, it slipped away while everyone was waiting for the next map to matter. Sometimes a course correction arrives just as the crowd has moved on. Number 3. Warcraft 3. Reforged. A hallowed RTS returns, the community holds its breath, and then exhales disappointment. Reforged launched to missing features, changes that clashed with expectations, and a user score dogpile that became part of internet history. Refunds were granted more liberally, think pieces multiplied, and the whole debacle turned into a case study in managing legacy IP. The tragedy isn't that Reforged was unplayable, it's that the re-release of a seminal game should have been a celebratory layup. Instead, it's shorthand for how to dim a classic's glow. When you're dealing with formative memories, players aren't just buying a product, they're buying back a feeling. Like, if you break that deal, the reputational damage lasts longer than any patch notes. It's hard to spark wonder when you're busy putting out fires. Number 2. Blasphemous 2. Sometimes better doesn't feel better. Blasphemous 2 is tighter to play, smarter with traversal, and generous with tools. What it isn't is as haunted. The first game's cutscenes felt like illuminated manuscripts dipped in nightmare ink. Bosses were screen-filling fever dreams that stuck under your skin. The sequel tempers that grotesque opera for something a little more conventional. Still striking, still lyrical, but less unsettling. And for fans who love the singular mood of the original, that temperature change matters. This is the rare slot where lost its magic doesn't mean fell off. It means the sequel traded aura for accessibility. On paper, that's a win. In the gut, it's complicated. Now for a kind of magic you can't patch in. Number 1. EverQuest 1999. A 3D MMO without a roadmap, literally. Cities sprawled like mazes, danger didn't blink, and when you misjudged a pull, the game didn't just kill you, it dared you to recover your body. Corpse runs weren't flavor, they were curriculum. You learned the world because the world wouldn't forgive you for not learning it. Wizards and druids mattered because travel wasn't trivial. Guilds mattered because a bad night could strand you a continent away from your gear. It was unfair, obtuse, and often maddening, and it felt like stepping into a world that didn't care you'd arrived. Over the years, quality of life won, and it should have in many places. But in smoothing the jagged edges, the game gradually set down the very tension that made its nights so electric. This isn't nostalgia for pain, it's recognition that some magic is born from friction. You can design a better game. You can't always design a better story you tell yourself about that game 25 years later. Magic doesn't mean perfect, it means charged. A series can still sell, still review well, and still feel less alive to the people who once built their weekends around it. Sometimes the magic fades because a studio drifts from a core identity. Sometimes it fades because expectations outrun reality. Sometimes it fades because time sands everything smooth and there's nothing left to catch on, and if you felt a sting at any entry here, that's the point. The loss isn't always about bad design, it's about a shift in feeling. And that's why it's so hard to fix. You can ship features, but you can't ship $19.99 back into people's veins. Every now and then a sequel, a remake, or a miracle patch rekindles it. Most of the time, we just carry the memory forward and hope the next new thing builds a different kind of spark.